it is now time to talk about the thinking tool of multiple perspectives. This icon, if you think about it, the sky is the limit because everyone has his or her perspective coming in to anything they want to think about. Let's use Of Mice and Men. When you are looking at Of Mice and Men, you could say, well, how do different people view Of Mice and Men? Let me give you an example. I'm a teacher, you're a student. I'm going to approach this piece of literature differently with different perspectives than you. Look at age. I'm almost 40 years old. You guys are not. So I'm going to come in with a different perspective. But my grandpa would come in with even more different perspective because he was actually alive when these things were going on. You look at someone who lives in the South versus someone who lives in the North, and then you take a character like Crooks, who is a black man on a ranch surrounded by white people, and it might look differently in the perspective that people had when they view this particular chapter 4 in Of Mice and Men. You look at someone who lives in California that's been to Salinas Valley versus someone who's never been there. They're going to view it differently, obviously, because they know what it looks like when they see the Gabilan Mountains, because they've seen them, okay? Here's another question. What are the pros and cons about these viewpoints? Even more interesting, what is the ethical foundation that someone has to have that perspective? We talked about ethics with a different thinking skill. So when you're ethically thinking, all right, here's why I think this way about the way Curly's wife is treated, well, what ethical framework do you have for that? You have a perspective that comes from something, okay? And there's lots of other different types of perspectives that you can do approaching a piece of literature. But then even in the piece of literature, what's Crooks's perspective about the dream? What is Curly's wife's perspective about the dream? Lenny's, George's, and Candy's. They all have a different perspective about that dream, and they all respond differently when things happen in the novella. So it's really, even in the last moment of the story, when Lenny is shot, Slim is lifting George up to take him off to get a drink, and Carlson literally says, now what the H do you think has gotten into those guys? Carlson has a different perspective. He doesn't get it at all. So there's lots of perspectives that you can have when you approach a piece of literature. Enjoy doing that, and then always consider, what's your perspective, and why is that your perspective? Ask that question. Why do I think this way?